Well, Louise Safely, who hired me, made the prediction, oh, you'll be around about a year or two. And then I guess I showed her.
It's the people, it's never want us to leave.
It's been one heck of a ride, hasn't it?
Yes.
You know, there's so many things that are unknown about the future, and we can have dreams, goals, and aspirations. But to really have that confidence and that assurance and rally the team around the future is really to actually take a look in the rearview mirror and understand, where have we come from? What has been successful? What built the foundation of this company? And what are the things that we really need to hold on to? Van Meter started in 1928 in downtown Cedar Rapids. Pete Lemley and R.L. Van Meter, Mr. Lemley and Mr. Van Meter, two super innovative businessmen, started the very first Van Meter location right downtown Cedar Rapids across from Green Square Park.
It was just a little dinky company, but good people.
Van Meter, of course, I never met, so I only heard of him. I've always was told that he was a dynamo-type salesperson, very active. And Pete, he was well, not a CPA, but he ran the office more or less. A subdued, slower type person, not an extrovert in any way whatsoever, but just a very pleasant, educated, cultural man.
As I remember it, nobody complained about working for that company because Van Meter himself and Pete Lemley were two fine citizens in town.
Mr. Lemley and Mr. Van Meter started the business, and upon Mr. Van Meter's passing, Mr. Lemley really took the helm, and I think, as the story goes, he hired Dave Clark.
And he wanted someone to be a college graduate in the business, since this was started with people back in the Depression area. And so he convinced me that that would be a good thing for me to do, rather than go to Chicago and work for a major company after graduating. And I decided that probably was a good idea, so I started at 15 cents an hour.
Well, it was at 526 4th Avenue Southeast, and it was a former funeral home. And we were there until 1980. And we had two trucks. We had a stake bed pickup truck and an old van. And that was our delivery.
Mr. Clark really led that business, and I believe that he hired Jim Hoke.
I was 15. I was downtown looking for employment when I turned 16. And I said, oh, what the heck? I might as well go in there. And I asked for the owner, and Mr. Lemley was not in, but Dave Clark was in.
And I asked him how come he came here. Well, I just thought you might hire people. I just walked in. I said, well, you're hired. Show up in June. After 20 years, when I was age 40, I walked into Mr. Lemley's office and said, I really can't work here much longer, Pete, because you might not be here tomorrow. And the bank owns most of the stock. They'll just sell it to a large company, and that large company will not want me or anybody else in this place, probably. He agreed with me instantly at that time and in his office, and immediately picked up the phone and called the lawyer that we dealt with and said, let's figure out a way for David to buy this business.
And when Dave Clark came to be president, and then Jim came on board, that's when the growth started.
That's when Jim really kind of grew into a sales leader of the company, started expanding the company. I think Waterloo may have been that next branch after Cedar Rapids.
Waterloo basically came because of Ellen Bradley.
And at that time, we had just Cedar Rapids. That's the only area that we were able to sell Allen Bradley. Crescent Electric, as you probably know, had the rest of the state. I convinced them that we should be in Waterloo. And so they did let us have Waterloo, and that's where Jim spent most of his time.
I purchased the company in 1981. When I purchased the company, I think we had 27 employees.
I sold it to Jim because I was fortunate to own the company and I wanted to stay with the employees. I called him into the office and said, "You are going to own the company." Well, that shocked him so much he almost fell off the chair because he said, "How am I going to do that?" I said, "We'll figure out a way to do it. And I'm doing it because I think you can do it."
When you had an opportunity at Van Meter Company, you took advantage of it.
We had an opportunity to go to Des Moines. And that was a real big decision because it was, I believe, about a $400,000 investment. And that was a lot of money back then for Van Meter.
As the story goes, Jim Hoke and Barry Boyer really led that company into employee ownership.
I started as a sales manager, and in 2003 had the opportunity to become president and CEO of the company.
Jim sold his shares of the company to make the company 100% employee owned in 2005.
Part of it was, that was kind of a hard decision because Van Meter had always been kind of my baby. Dave Clark gave me a tremendous opportunity. And I felt like, hey, I owed the employees who got us where we are today to let them own a piece of it.
We got into it when the stock was like $8 or $9 or something. And to see that thing grow, it was unbelievable. I know a lot of times my husband said, "That cannot be right." No.
Took some time to grow
Right.
and start to become something.
Yes.
And I think once it started to get to a number that was like, oh, this might change what my retirement looks like,
Yeah.
people started to connect the dots a little bit.
Because what happens when you show people how what they do impacts the company, and they know that how we do is how they do, then you start to get ideas that really change the shape of who you are.
Barry really became on this run of leadership of really making sure that the company wasn't just profit P focused. That was so important to the employee ownership model, but our ability to, from Barry's perspective, get back to really getting to that people first model.
I believe that people make things happen. And if you can create a picture of where you're going and engage people in something that is meaningful to them and benefits them, you can win.
We've had so many comments from outside people that come here to visit or for training or whatever. It's like, oh, we've never come in a place like this where people are so happy, where people are glad to be here. And the pictures on the wall, they appreciate seeing who we are. And it's time and again, they talk about our attitude and the attitude of this company, and that's what drives us.
We did it not because so much about having the company do well, that was key, but I was certainly dead serious about how do we create a place that people really want to come to work. Not 24/7, but get out of work what they're bargaining for.
When I joined in '99, you could just tell that Van Meter was a place where you took risks, you embraced change. I don't think that's changed.
When Van Meter launched and Mr. Lemley and Mr. Van Meter, really thought, what could they do to help innovate, to grow this company? They came back to service and serving others and serving the customers and serving communities. Van Meter's first motto was, "Service is our first thought."
I think for me, the flood was the turning point. In 2008, we saw fellow Cedar Rapidians. It's hard for me to do this and not be emotional to this day. But I grew up with a lot of those people because I grew up in Cedar Rapids and I love this city and I love my state. And I remember, the devastation that happened to so many people, 4,000 houses underwater, 1,100 businesses that were affected. And, we doubled down. We added, we almost doubled our inventory at the time. And we said, we are going to be a solution in this community. And we were open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. People came from other branches. That was a time I think we found out who we were.
When I got the job to become the leader, the president, and the CEO of this incredible employee-owned company. The amount of responsibility that I felt and the honor that I felt to lead in this company was huge.
It's impossible to overdream. Creativity happens when we take the shackles off, and the shackles are off this company. So now we have to think about what we're going to do with that gift.
At this point in time, we are working on our Van Meter 2030 plan. What do we look like in 2030? What are the things that are going to change and continue to disrupt? And most importantly, what are the things that made us successful in the past that are going to be those things that help us get to our future?
I knew that we would be big and succeed. I just didn't think we would have the numbers we have today. So, all the owners should be congratulated on making it happen.
And truly, there's a lot that has changed in our company over the years, but that's one thing that has remained the same. As an employee-owned company, Van Meter, our whole purpose is to create lasting value for those we serve. Our servant leadership model, our service mindset has been a thread that's been a part of our company for over 95 years.